This is episode 9 of my Formula 1 career. I'm Ian and welcome to a very overcast Sochi where rain is expected after just 4 or 5 laps, so we could expect to see the grid being mixed up quite substantially after the race start. 19 corners make up the Sochi Autodrome here, with turn number 2 being the main one. That's the big one where most of the overtaking is going to happen, but you could also expect along that back straight with the DRS, turn 14 is a real possibility as well, because for the race strategy we're only looking at doing a one-stopper today. We are going to be starting on the ultra softs that of course we set with our fastest time in Q2 yesterday, and we're going to be running on them till around lap 22, and then we're going to be pitting onto the super soft tyres for 31 laps, which will take us to the end of the race. We have got an unused set of soft tyres that we may be able to throw on should anything happen around lap 10, 11, something like that. The softs are expected to last around 40 laps, so that's something to bear in mind if anything happens early on. But on to today's starting grid then. So Kimi Räikkönen, the current Drivers' Championship leader, is on pole, and he's ahead of Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes. Then it's Sebastian Vettel with Daniel Ricciardo up in 4th. Valtteri Bottas had a bad qualifying down in 5th place. He's got Max Verstappen alongside him for company. Then it's us in 7th place with Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon, followed by Felipe Massa, Romain Grosjean, Fernando Alonso, Danny Kvyat, Nico Hulkenberg, our teammate, in 14th. Then it's Sainz, Magnussen, Stoffel Van Dorn with Lance Stroll down in 18th. And right at the back is the Saubers of Marcus Ericsson and Pascal Wehrlein. As we await the 5 red lights here in Sochi, it is worth mentioning to keep an eye behind us on Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon. They, of course, have got Mercedes power, and with this long, flat-out start all the way to turn 2, you can expect to see them possibly jumping ahead of us coming into that first braking zone, so keep an eye on them as we await lights out here in Sochi. Cut to the replay here on the race start. We didn't have a terrible start, but look at Max Verstappen. He got a fantastic start and managed to squeeze out into the middle, almost squeeze Ricciardo into the wall. Bottas didn't have the best of starts, but we then had the 2 Force Indias to our right. They were really pushing hard, but we just locked up the front brakes and we ran into the back of Valtteri Bottas, just damaging our front wing a little bit. And as we come around onto that long turn 3, you can just see Bottas had to back out of the move, and we managed to squeeze ahead of the Mercedes fantastically. So we are now in P8, having started the race in 7th place on the grid. As we skip to the start of lap 4 now, we've got Bottas right on our tail. He's going to have DRS, so it's going to be quite an easy manoeuvre for him, which he does by coming along on the inside. We don't really put up much of a fight. We started to brake a little bit earlier than we normally would. Let him go past. We're not fighting him. And because of that, we could bump our fuel mix down to standard. We did have our team get onto the radio after the first lap, as you may remember, talking about problems with our engine. This is the same engine that we've been using since Australia, so it's a little bit damaged, it's a little bit worn, so we're a little bit down on power. So we knew that fighting with Bottas was going to be a very, very hard ask. And we then had Romain Grosjean on the super soft, so a slightly slower tyre, and even he was gaining on us. So we had to be mindful, and the rain, of course, was expected to come down very, very shortly. We're midway through lap 6 here, coming along the back straight, and as you can see, the rain has started to fall. The team is suggesting a tyre strategy change by going on to the intermediate tyres, and I think at this point we decide let's do so because we run very, very deep into turn 14. We allow Romain Grosjean to go past us, and at this point I think it's time to change onto the intermediate tyres. So we dive into the pits behind Grosjean, and we decide to make use of this first very early pit stop by pitting for a new nose. Remember, it was damaged on that very first corner incident that I had by running into the back of Bottas. So we are going to come out a little bit further behind Grosjean, which is a little bit unfortunate because it was a 9.5 second stop. So we funnel out into 17th place behind the Williams of Lance Stroll, but ahead of Fernando Alonso in the McLaren. We jump ahead to lap 9 now. We're catching up to Lance Stroll, but unfortunately we just get a little sniff of oversteer and we run wide in turn 6, which allows Fernando Alonso just to come up on the inside. He overtakes us. We drop down to 11th place. Remember, we have climbed because all the other cars that hadn't yet pitted have now, of course, pitted onto the intermediates as well. So that's why we've climbed back up. And we now are looking at the back of the McLaren car with a very, very quick Haas of Kevin Magnussen behind us and Lance Stroll leading this pack of 4 cars. Jump you forward to the beginning of lap 13 now as Lance Stroll is really starting to hold both Alonso and even myself up. We've dropped back a little bit, but Alonso is right on the tail of the young Canadian. As we come around this long sweeping left-hander, you watch Lance Stroll, he just locks up, he runs very, very deep, and we are very opportunistic. Alonso makes no issue getting past Stroll, but we seize our opportunity and we manage to get ahead of the struggling Williams and move up into the points. We're in 10th place, our target's still 9th, but the rain does not look like going away anytime soon. At the end of lap 15, the rain is still coming down, but very, very lightly. So a lot of the other teams, including Alonso ahead of us, they seize their opportunity and go into pit. It's a bit of a tough choice now. Do they go onto the ultra softs and do 2 stints on the ultra softs, or do they try and stretch out the softs, maybe even the super softs, to the end of the session? We decide to stay out for one more lap on the intermediates, and with a 3-4 second lead over Lance Stroll, who has dived into the pits behind us, it's very, very crucial that we make this lap count. As our teammate dives into the pits and puts on the super soft tyres, he's going to try to go to the end of the race on those tyres. We are going to go for the other. We're going to go for 2 stops with ultra soft tyres. We're going to do 2 stints on the ultra softs, but it's very, very crucial that we make this lap count so that Stroll doesn't jump us with an undercut. A 2.9 second stop wasn't too bad. As you see Lance Stroll coming around that final corner, so it's very, very important that we get a great exit coming out of the pit lane. This is going to be really, really tight to see whether Lance Stroll gets ahead of us. There he is in our left rear view mirror. He's coming alongside. He's got a bit more extra pace, but we've got that inside line, and Stroll has to almost yield for us, not through choice, but just through necessity and self-preservation. And we just about hold on to 10th place as Stroll is forced to drop back quite significantly. We sort of compromised his exit there, and we can now settle down and try and get some good lap times. We move on to lap 20 now, and our 10th place is looking highly unlikely. It looks like we're going to be dropping out of the points as Max Verstappen, who is totally out of place, screams up. We end up moving on to the inside, but he has no difficulty getting past us. Again, we don't really put up much of a fight. He moves ahead. We drop down to 11th place now. He was a bit out of place. By lap 7, right when the rain came down, he got into a bit of a tangle with a couple of cars, and that's why he dropped so far down. He obviously needed a wing change as well. So we drop down into 11th place, but we are really starting to struggle with our engine. Our engine's very, very worn, and Kevin Magnussen of Haas is closing in quite quickly, and he'll be on top of us within a couple of laps. Move you ahead to lap 22 now. We've got the Haas right behind us. We are really starting to struggle. We just don't have the power in the engine that we had in previous races. We're really starting to struggle, and as we come around on that slight kink to the right of turn 7, Kevin Magnussen goes for an opportunity on the outside and clips the back of our car, and we go into the wall. It doesn't end our race there, but we have got very, very serious damage on that front wing, which means we have to go back into the pits yet again. Here's the replay, and as you can see, Kevin Magnussen got a better exit out of turn 6. He's on that left-hand side, but there's no opportunity for him there. I don't know what he was thinking, but he really, really damages our front wing. That's our race effectively over at this point, as we see 3 cars all go screaming past. Perez, Massa, then Ocon, and then our teammate Nico Hulkenberg right on the tail end of it. So we're behind our teammate, and we still have to pit again. He's going to potentially go to the end of the race without any more pit stops. And after coming out from our pit stop where we had to change for a nose, another long stop, there's Stoffel Van Dorn ahead of us, but we come out ahead of Carlos Sainz down in 18th place. We're going to go to the end of the race on these super soft tyres, and Stoffel Van Dorn is more than likely going to be stopping again, because he's going to do a similar strategy to what we were doing before. We're doing 2 stints on the ultra soft tyres. We're midway through lap 28 here. We've closed down on Stoffel Van Dorn, who must be having engine troubles himself. But we got DRS, but we just can't get close enough on that back straight. So we have to have another go on lap 29. But as you can see, there's blue flags waving because Lewis Hamilton is closing in to us, and he's of course the race leader. So we need to get this move done, or we could be compromised a little bit when he comes up and we have to yield for him. Moments later, it's lap 29. We're coming up to turn 2, but we are not close enough. We have a little think, a little look on that inside, but we just don't make it stick. We're just too far back. We're about half a second behind Van Dorn going across that start-finish line. So we have to go around yet again and have another chance of overtaking the McLaren. Lap 29 still though, but as you can see, look right behind us, there's Lewis Hamilton. We yield over for him so he can go past. We don't want a penalty. So that's ruined our opportunity, because we were getting very, very close to Van Dorn. It's ruined our opportunity of having another go at turn 2. But look what happens as Lewis Hamilton dives into the pits for a pit stop. So that really, really ruined our attempts at overtaking Van Dorn. We had to yield for him, and he ended up diving into the pits anyway. So we're now 1.5 seconds back from Van Dorn, and we've got all the work to do again, and we're still stuck down in P18. But thankfully, we're still gaining a lot of time over Sainz behind us. Lap 31 this time, and we got a much better exit out of that final corner. We're a little bit further back from Van Dorn than we were before, but we've got so much more pace, and what with DRS, we get right on top of him, right by the braking zone. We brake a little bit later than the McLaren on the inside. We make the move stick. We move up into P17, and the fact that we're really, really struggling against cars that are on ultra soft tyres makes it a lot harder than we thought. But of course, we're now getting blue flags as well, because you can see behind us, we've got a Mercedes and a Red Bull behind us, so we're going to have to move aside for them at some point. We're on lap 35 now, and all the cars that were on their ultra soft runs are all coming in to pit for their second and final stint on those tyres. And as you can see, all we've managed to do is just climb up to P16. Marcus Ericsson was the car in front of us, and he has just pitted, so we overtook him whilst he was in the pit lane. But we are a long way off the pace from Danny Kvyat on the ultra softs. He has already pitted, and we are 14.5 seconds away from him, and that's as close as we get. We end up losing time to the Toro Rosso, but rather interestingly, we do stay well ahead of Carlos Sainz. We're 11.1 seconds ahead of the other Toro Rosso. Unfortunately for us, we are around 35 seconds behind our teammate Nico, who is going to the end of the race. He's been on those tyres, the same super softs as us, for a few laps longer, so he's going to start seeing a little bit of degradation sooner than we will, but that's an impossible mountain to climb, and we now have to just make it all the way to the end of the race on these tyres without any stuff-ups. There was some good news for us though on lap 40, because Sebastian Vettel, who was running around second or third in the race, had to pull over with engine failure. There he is there on the left hand side. So we do unlap ourselves from the Ferrari, and by the end of lap 41 we've moved up into P15, still a long way away from our target of 9, and even our teammate who maintaining that sort of 37-38 second lead over us. Lap 47 now, and there's another yellow flag being waved coming out of turn 15. We're behind a Red Bull that has lapped us, and that's Pascal Wehrlein off to the side there on the right-hand side. He's out of the race as well. Not that he affects us too much. We've already lapped him ourselves, and he must have been having an even bigger nightmare of a race than us. And as we begin lap 48, we've just got about 5 laps to go in this race. Sergio Perez, who started on the super softs after the rain, he's dived into the pits and put on a set of ultra soft tyres. So we move up into P14, which is where we stay for the remaining 5 laps of this race, or 4 for us, because we did, of course, get lapped earlier on. So a bit of a disappointing result there. We finished down in 14th place, 7 places lower than when we started. The race was won by Lewis Hamilton ahead of Kimi Räikkönen and Valtteri Bottas, which is a very, very similar podium to the previous race, you may remember. And because of that, Lewis Hamilton does take the lead in the Drivers' Championship. So if we have a quick look then at the top 10, after Hamilton it was Räikkönen, Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, Romain Grosjean, Max Verstappen down in 7th place. Then it's Felipe Massa, Kevin Magnussen, and Fernando Alonso picks up the final points position. Our teammate Nico Hulkenberg, he finished in 11th place, and he must be having engine difficulty as well, because his best time was well off the pace, just like ours was. So we only lost the 2 cars then in today's race. We did lose Sebastian Vettel and Pascal Wehrlein, and Stoffel Van Dorn had a nightmare, finishing 2 laps down. And rather interestingly, because of Grosjean and Magnussen's excellent performances today, Haas jumps Renault in the Constructors' Championship with 15 points to Renault's 11. And here's what I had to say at the end of a disappointing race weekend.
Oh, it just wasn't your day today. Can you explain what was wrong with your car?
Yeah, we had big problems with the ICE. It happened as soon as we came around to complete lap 1, and we just started getting loads of warning lights and all that sort of thing. So yeah, we were down on power for the whole race. So it was a bit disappointing. It's the same engine that we've had since Australia, so it is starting to show signs of wear, and we were obviously lucky that we didn't get an engine blowout or anything like that. So at least we could complete the race. But what with the rain, and then of course with the incident with Magnussen, yeah, it wasn't our day today.
So we'll be taking new parts for Spain?
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah, we of course we got to wait till we get back to the factory and have a good look at the data and that sort of thing. But more than likely we're going to be at least taking a new ICE at the very least, and maybe even an MG UK. But of course we do have to look at all the data and see whether it's even worth doing it, see what we're expecting to get out of Spain, because it might be worth trying to sort of wring the neck out of the engine a little bit and wait till Monaco, but we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks.